I asked his mother, Michelle, with 19 kids, what was your favorite baby gift? And without hesitation, she said, a playpen. I said, really, why? She said, because I can sit inside and my kids can't get anywhere near me. All right, let's get serious again because we're going to talk about a very serious issue, and that's the threat to our religious liberty. If you don't think that's being threatened, then you're just not paying attention. We put together an impressive panel to discuss the threats to our religious liberties led by Ken Klukowski, the director of Family Research Council's Center for Religious Liberty, and he's also on faculty at Liberty University School of Law. Ken has authored briefs on constitutional issues across the country, including the one, by the way, adopted by the U.S. District Court, striking down Obamacare in its entirety. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome our panel, led by Ken Klukowski.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? Wonderful. Well, we've got an important topic to discuss today, and we have a fantastic panel that really takes us out of the realm of just policy discussions and putting names and faces on this situation to remind us all that the reality is when we're talking about aspects of our government, when we talk about American life, when we talk about liberty, we're talking about human beings here. These aren't academic discussions. We're talking about over 300 million human beings who are living life in this free country and what it means to live in America in the times that we're in right now. And specifically right now, we're going to be talking about religious liberty, what has been described by many people as America's first freedom because it was our founding freedom. The first people that came to the United States to permanently settle here, not to just engage in business, did so to be able to live according to the dictates of their conscience, to be able to worship God, and to be able to show that in every aspect of their daily life, free of government coercion, without the leave of the state. And yet we live in a time where those seeking to do so find themselves under attacks that are unprecedented in the history of the United States. We're going to talk with some of those people now today. First, I'd like to bring up Audrey Jarvis. Well, she's going to speak from her chair, but bring her up to the audience, as it were. Audrey is a college student right now, just doing well in school and seeking to do so as a faithful Christian. And Audrey, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the situation that you ran into when you were just acting as any ordinary student would out in California.
Thank you very much. I was working as a student representative at a new student orientation at Sonoma State University, where I was approached twice by my supervisor, who told me that my cross, my symbol of Jesus Christ, would offend other students and make them feel as if they were not welcome at the university and that they would not want to join the organization that I was promoting. He approached me once. I refused to take my cross off. He approached me again and told me I could hide my necklace, which to me is the same thing as taking it off altogether, but I refused to sit down, and I refused to be quiet about the situation, and I encourage all other young Christians to do so as well.
Audrey, when you were approached by this authority figure telling you to remove a common, everyday, the ubiquitous symbol of Christianity, the universally recognized symbol of the Christian faith, which again you're just wearing as a piece of jewelry, what went through your mind? How did that make you feel? And not just the subject, but how did it feel to have someone speaking from an authority position telling you that you could not wear a symbol that identifies you with Jesus Christ?
Well, it was definitely a very demeaning experience, very embarrassing, made to be feel very vulnerable in front of my peers, kind of put out on a platform that I didn't expect that day when I put my cross on to be confronted in such a way. But I know that it's on an upswing in America, and unfortunately, it's more of a daily reality than I think many young Christian people realize. So as I was very hurt, I immediately left the orientation as quickly as I could, and I realized that while I need to have a heart that seeks justice, I also need have a heart that seeks mercy as well, and realize that a lot of these people who are doing these things to suppress our religious liberties don't know the love of Jesus Christ, and they need it more than any of the rest of us. So my initial reaction is to pray for those people who need it.
You prayed for those who were seeking to discriminate against you because of your Christian faith.
Absolutely.
And just to clarify, you weren't even going around to the crowd talking about Jesus Christ, raising the Bible. You weren't inserting yourself into any situation. You were just doing a regular duty and just happened to be wearing a cross, correct?
Absolutely, and I hope that by my actions, people will know that I live my life for Christ. I don't need to say anything. It can be seen by others by the way I live out my life.
Well, thank you, Audrey. Jeff Mateer is with Liberty Institute. Jeff Mateer is General Counsel at Liberty Institute, an outstanding Christian public interest law firm that's representing people across the country who are facing this kind of religious discrimination. Jeff, this appears, as Audrey was just referencing, there is really a growing national trend of this. Situations like this were unthinkable even a decade ago, to say nothing of 20 years ago. Tell us about what Liberty is doing with regards to Audrey and how this fits into the larger national pattern that we're seeing here.
Yeah, Kent, thank you. Audrey's situation, and we're obviously very, very proud of her, because what she did is she stood up. She knew that it was wrong for someone to tell her that she couldn't express her faith in public. And so Audrey contacted the Liberty Institute, and really within days, we were able to point out to the university that they were wrong, that they were violating federal law, that they were violating the First Amendment, and they apologized and really admitted their mistakes. Now, that's a great story, and it's a testament to Audrey, and I'd like to say Audrey's situation is isolated. It's not. And I'm sure everybody in this room realizes that it's not isolated. And too many times, the school administrators don't react the way they did in Audrey's case. Instead, they dig in and fight. We've got a case down in Texas in a little town called Kuntz, which I'm sure everybody here knows where Kuntz is, right? It's near Beaumont, right? Everybody knows where Beaumont is. The Texans at least do. It's sort of near Houston, sort of. But in Kuntz, we represent some cheerleaders who on their own decided to hold up banners that proclaim a positive message, a message that comes from the Bible. And our friends from Wisconsin, not really, a group from Wisconsin, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, complained about those verses. And unlike the school administrators in Audrey's case, these school administrators decided they were going to dig in. Well, they've dug in so much that even though we got a temporary restraining order permitting the banners, after we won a judgment at the trial court permitting the banners, the school district continues to fight us, and we're on appeal. And we're hearing that every day. We're hearing about problems in our schools, in the public arena, in our churches, where folks are being discriminated against because of their religious beliefs. At Liberty Institute and FRC, I hope everybody here has picked one of these up. This is a summary called Undeniable, the Survey of Hostility to Religion in America. And this is a joint project of both Liberty Institute and Family Research Council. And together we've documented instances of religious hostility in America. This is the summary. And it details cases like Audrey's and the Kuntz cheerleaders. But this is the summary. I went ahead this morning and printed out the actual survey that you can get online at religiousHostility.org. And it is 1,200 instances of religious hostility in America. Now, that's amazing, but what's more amazing, we did this last year, and the number was 600. So we've almost doubled in 1 year. I mean, that's what's going on, Ken.
Wow. Well, Jeff, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. In fact, we've been on cases together over the years. Just for the audience of people who are fortunate enough not to be lawyers, briefly say, everyone gets the sense in their gut that in America this has to be wrong. In fact, it's illegal. Tell us why it's illegal.
It's illegal because under the First Amendment, you cannot engage in religious viewpoint discrimination. You can't tell a student that they can wear a heart cross, but they can't wear a cross with, they can't wear a heart necklace, but they cannot wear a cross necklace. That's called religious viewpoint discrimination. The First Amendment prohibits that. We have a strong, a robust First Amendment. And again, the key is in situations like Audrey and the cheerleaders, and hopefully my friend Craig James, and you'll get to hear shortly from him, when we stand up, we win. Okay? At Liberty Institute, we win 99% of our cases. The reason isn't because... The reason isn't because I'm a great lawyer, because I quite frankly, I don't really think I am. The reason we win is we surround ourselves with some great volunteer attorneys who are out there, the best firms in the country. But it's also because we have a great First Amendment. We have a strong First Amendment. And even as frustrated we are sometimes at this Supreme Court on religious liberty issues, especially free exercise issues, they've been very good. And so when we stand up, if folks will stand up, we can win, and we can take back this part of our culture.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And this, I'm going to have to disagree with you in part. Jeff Mateer is a great lawyer. I say that as someone who has fought in the trenches with him as a lawyer. Under the leadership of Kelly Shackelford, the president of Liberty Institute, and their litigation director, Hiram Sasser, and their whole team there, these guys know the law cold. They are experts at First Amendment liberty, and they are aggressive. They are forward-leaning. They know how to fight, and they know how to win, and we're grateful for what you're doing there. Audrey, you were smart to get Liberty Institute as your lawyers on this.
Ever made, that's for sure.
And another person was smart to retain Liberty Institute as his legal counsel. Craig James, it probably doesn't need an introduction for many of you. A distinguished and accomplished sports commentator who for years was providing expert commentary on air for ESPN. And then when there was an open Senate seat in Texas, ran for the U.S. Senate, and was, as any political candidate is, as a private citizen, was asked for his views on various issues. And then after that Senate seat ended up going to someone else you might have heard of named Ted Cruz. And there is no shame to having lost a Texas Republican primary to Ted Cruz, who I've also been able to work on cases with. Talk about another great lawyer, a truly great lawyer. But after that, you got back into broadcasting. And Craig, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your situation that brought you to pick up the phone and call Liberty Institute.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Yes, losing to Ted Cruz was no shame. I call and support Ted. I pray for Ted, and he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. So I got out of broadcasting. I had to get off the air at ESPN while I was running for office, and I took a time break from broadcast, decided I might have an interest in getting back in. Fox Sports heard that I was interested, called me, and said, hey, we have a show on a Saturday night. Would you like to take it? And I said, absolutely, it'd be great. And the studio was in the Dallas area, which is where I live. I said, I can drive there, don't have to get on an airplane. This is a no-brainer. So on a Friday afternoon of opening weekend, Labor Day weekend, they issue a press statement that says, man, Craig James is joining us. We're glad we're going to have him. He'll be an asset to our coverage. A very complimentary release. Saturday night, I did the 1-hour show, 60 minutes. Sunday night, my phone rings late, and it's from the general manager, and I answer, and I'm thinking, I'm getting a promotion already. This is pretty good. He says, hey, it's over. You're no longer going to be on the air with us. Fox Sports, the corporate, will not allow this to happen. And I thought it was a joke. Well, it wasn't a joke. And then within hours, the next morning, I come to find out that a Fox spokesperson had told the Dallas Morning News that my answer during a candidate debate 15 months prior was going to hold against me because I believed marriage was between a man and a woman. And so now all of a sudden the headlines were James's anti-gay stance gets him fired, one and done at Fox. So that's kind of where we are. It's been a wake-up call to me, to say the least. And all of these speakers and all these things that you hear, we're all preaching to the choir here. All right, if there's anything that I can say for Audrey and for all the others who've been discriminated against, we have to stand up and be strong and be together. The other side is being heard. And the message that I hope that people hear from me in this case here, this isn't about Craig James. It's not about Audrey. This isn't about Liberty Institute. This is about America, the First Amendment. This is about a country that we enjoyed our religious liberties and freedoms. It's not about Christianity. I love my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I always have. And I will never hide from that. This is about having a faith and having the ability to worship and have that freedom in this country. So I hope that our side, those who have the same religious liberties and freedoms, will also be bold and passionate, or we're going to lose it.
Now, Craig, clarify a couple things for us. Did you say anything about marriage on the air in part of a sports broadcast?
No, I did not.
Okay, now, you believe that marriage is between a man and a woman.
I do.
And that's a public policy issue, and for you, that answer is derived in large part from your religious faith, which happens to be a traditional Christian faith, that you believe marriage is between one man and one woman.
Yeah, and see, this is the part to where people say it's my belief. It's what God says. It's not what my opinion. As I answered in that statement, in that answer that night in that debate, I said that He's going to judge all of us for our actions. We all have choices to make. And so he's taken us out of the judging business. He knew we couldn't handle that in a worldly manner. He says, leave it up to me. So I believe it's a man and a woman. That's based on the Lord that I worship. I believe all of the Bible, not part of the Bible. You know, I try to be biblically correct and not politically correct.
And so when you were running for United States Senator, how many people were in that primary?
Well, it was Ted Cruz and then the rest of us.
And we all know that marriage is a public policy debate right now. It's what a large part of this conference is about. We've seen it as a court fight. We've seen it at the Supreme Court. In Texas, under Texas law, marriage is between a man and a woman, correct?
That's what and I believe it was 75% or 76?
Yes,
76% of Texans all believe that.
And then put it by that kind of overwhelming margin in the Texas state constitution, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So you are running for public office to represent the state of Texas in the U.S. Senate. And your position reflects Texas law. It reflects the Texas Constitution. It is still the law in more than 30 states across the country. It is the majority view in this nation. And for you, it comes directly from your Christian faith.
But I'm listening to you and I understand what you're saying, and all of that is true and correct. But I've learned enough through my lifetime to understand that you've got to stay on message and point. And the focus is the First Amendment, that the Constitution is being challenged. We see it time and again. And so I want to bring all of this around so that people, yes, you're right, but keep the focus on what it is. I have my religious liberties, my freedom to believe the biblical belief that I have. And that's what this is about.
What we're seeing here in this regard is completely incredible, because now we're not just talking about those who would seek to change government policy, but as Craig just said, and as Audrey is experiencing as well, we're talking about people who are being faced with a situation where it is, okay, maybe we can't take legal action against you if you refuse to compromise your religious liberty, but we can try and make it so you can't have a job, so that you can't keep a roof over the heads of your children, put food on the table for them. That there seems to be an organized effort out there trying to blacklist people and blacklist organizations, trying to really deprive people of their livelihoods, to ruin their lives. I'm thankful. I think, Craig, that you've been called to make this sort of a fight, okay? Because it's from what we're hearing and what we're dealing with at the Family Research Council. I know that Liberty Institute is doing it as well. This is happening in countless places all across the country. And just thankfully, You have a courageous and articulate man in Craig James who has been blessed with such talent and then has a career of experience training him how to be able to communicate, how to be able to reach out, who is able to make this a real face and a real name and a story that people can understand, but not just for him, representing not just thousands, but perhaps millions of people across this country who are continuing to deal with this on a daily basis. And so I think the message is clear. You are saying, and Audrey, you are saying, that people need to stand and fight, that they need to be willing to step forward and be heard, and have organizations like Liberty Institute who are going to carry this fight for them into courts to vindicate their constitutional rights.
Ken, that's exactly right. I think it's important when you, and I'm sure folks, there's somebody in this room, perhaps several in this room, that work in corporate America, and you know in your corporations there's a new political correctness that is in conflict with biblical truth, as Craig said. Not Craig James' truth, not Jeff Mateer's truth, biblical truth. And things like we're getting calls at the Liberty Institute about people who are being forced to go through so-called diversity training, which is really just another name for pushing an agenda of the left. And I just want people to know that fortunately, we have federal and state laws. Federal law, most states have laws, and specifically have laws that protect your religious liberty rights. They prohibit your employer from discriminating against you based upon your religious beliefs. Now, that's exactly what Fox has done to Craig. They violated federal law, they violated state law because they discriminated against his religious beliefs. Employers cannot do that in America. But again, the tree in the forest, when it falls, doesn't make a sound unless someone stands up to say it fell.
Man. Well, and I'd like to add on this here. And here's what I'm learning. So this is my wife. She's like, Ken, she's like, God, why'd you call us for this one? But we're ready to go. And the further that I walk down this trail, this journey, I'm finding that people are quiet. They support me, but they're like, man, they don't want to put their neck out there because they don't want to have the fear of the blowback that will come their direction, right? And so I am so hopeful and prayerful that the message is from this thing to really stand up and encourage. I say to my friends, when the Spirit stirs your soul to make a phone call or to say something to someone who might be in need, do it. Man, they need it. And that kind of support is something that we cannot deny the friends who need those things. So.
We are living in consequential times here in America. And it is at this time where we have situations like Audrey's, situations like Craig, that the U.S. Supreme Court next month on November 6th at 10 a.m. will be taking up what is one of the most consequential religious liberty cases in decades, where many of those issues are going to come to the fore. In Town of Greece versus Galloway, the idea of beginning meetings of governmental bodies like legislatures or town councils with an invocation is called legislative prayer. And the Supreme Court upheld that in 1983 in a case called Marsh v. Chambers. And you have this small town not a small town, a mid-sized town in upstate New York, where that's what they do at their town board meetings, where every house of worship is invited to be able to volunteer to offer a prayer. But if you don't happen to be part of a house of worship, it is any citizen in town can volunteer to pray. First come, first serve. Everyone's allowed. Now, the town is a supermajority, about 90% professing Christians. So, not surprisingly, a majority of the volunteers are Christian. But there have been others who have come forward. There was a Jewish person who offered a prayer. There was a Baha'i person who offered a prayer. There was even a Wiccan priestess, a witch, who offered a prayer in which she prayed to Apollo. But their policy was anyone in town is welcome to pray. There was even an atheist who signed up to pray. And they scheduled him. Now, he spared everyone an awkward moment by withdrawing. Maybe he was just signing up to see if he could. But they said, we have no idea what you're going to say, but you're a town resident. And so if you want to pray, Mr. Atheist, you can do that. Nonetheless, talking about some of our friends, Americans United for Separation of Church and State filed a lawsuit on behalf of 2 town residents who just wanted to have none of this. The U.S. District Court for the Western District of New York sided with the town with kind of a "you've got to be kidding me" opinion. They let the atheist and the witch pray. What exactly is it that you don't like here? The town even invited the plaintiffs that they could pray if they wanted to settle that. No, they didn't want that. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, when this case went up, reversed, and did so saying that this town's practice was unconstitutional because it was an endorsement of Christianity. They said, first of all, a majority of the prayers contain Christian references, and that's unconstitutional. They said even if they stay away from all those Christian words, and by the way, 9 times out of 10, Christian language means that you are referencing and perhaps closing your prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. As soon as someone prays in Jesus' name, it's unconstitutional, was the argument that was being made. That even if they avoided all that, the fact that a majority of the prayer givers, even if they offered plain vanilla prayers, the fact that a majority of the prayer givers were Christian was separately a violation of the First Amendment. And that third, the fact that many prayer givers said "we" when they prayed, "Lord, we pray," or "let us pray." That saying "we" means everyone in the town must share your religion, and that's unconstitutional too. So they said we can't look to any one thing, we just have to look to the totality of the circumstances, meaning anything we can find, and it makes it unconstitutional. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court has taken it up. It's a case being brought by other friends of ours, Alliance Defending Freedom. And they've recruited an outstanding constitutional lawyer, Tom Hungar, a partner at Gibson Dunn, who will be, in this case, appearing for his 26th time before the Supreme Court of the United States. In this case, to defend religious liberty. And in doing so, they're seeking not just to vindicate these prayers, to clarify that so long as the Supreme Court said in 1983, so long as no prayer giver is exploiting the opportunity to proselytize their one faith, to call on their general government audience that they have to convert to the Christian faith or whatever their faith is, or as long as they're not condemning other faiths from the public podium. That so long as that's not going on, federal judges are not theologians. They are not qualified to sit as a theological review board and decide what sort of things a person of faith can or cannot say in a prayer in America. Now, as the court is before this, they are arguing for this religious liberty case, and they are also asking for the U.S. Supreme Court. That whole idea I just said of whether something's an endorsement of religion, that endorsement test, as it's called, was adopted by the U.S. Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision in 1989. It has proven an unmitigated train wreck and abject failure that has been laden with hostility towards people of all faiths in this country and has become a sledgehammer to drive people of faith out of the public square, whether it is in their words or in their passive displays. And ADF, in this case, is asking the U.S. Supreme Court, with briefs filed by Liberty Institute. I'm representing members of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing members of Congress, in this case, where we have filed briefs. And half the states of the country, the Indiana Attorney General filed a brief on behalf of half the states in the country, all of us asking the Supreme Court to explicitly and once and for all jettison this whole ill-conceived endorsement test and return to the historical meaning of the Establishment Clause, which is simply that the government cannot coerce any citizen to participate in religion against their conscience or otherwise directly officially declare we are a Reformed Presbyterian nation, or we are a Southern Baptist nation, or we are adopting this catechism as national policy. That so long as there is no official endorsement, an actual formal adoption of a state religion, so long as there is not that, and so long as no one is being coerced to do anything against their conscience religiously, the Establishment Clause is not designed as a battering ram to knock down Christians and churches and people of faith in the United States. That instead, under the First Amendment, whether it's free speech, free exercise, or establishment, that all of us are welcome to express our faiths, live out our faiths, and enjoy these blessings that we were founded hundreds of years ago to secure. So Audrey, Jeff, Craig, thank you for taking a stand, and thank you all for having us.
Thank you.